Good morning. On BizTech Conversations today, we have Jaffri Ibrahim. He's the CEO of CREST, which is the acronym for Collaborative Research in Engineering, Science and Technology Center. I'm Brian Fernandez and welcome to the show, Jaffri.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's very good to see you again, Brian.
Yeah, Jaffri, now tell us, CREST was established in June 2012, with an initial allocation from the government of 100 million over 10 years. Now, what was its key mandate and key objectives?
Okay. Yes, it was established in 2012, and we are a non-profit organization, company limited by guarantee. So by and large, we're a members-based organization. We don't have any shareholders, and we have basically the key industry leaders who are, who were the ones who actually jointly with government mooted the idea of CREST. Back in 2011, the Minister of EPU, Economic Planning Unit, invited the leaders to basically present their idea to the Economic Council of Malaysia, which is the Prime Minister and the senior cabinet ministers. And the idea was the electronics industry has been in Malaysia for the last 5 decades. They've been going from strength to strength. However, they've been basically driving many of what they feel are good initiatives by themselves. And if there's any relationship that they have with a professor or or an agency, it will be a personal relationship. So what they wanted was a catalyst organization to help facilitate and organize a more institutional relationship between agencies, industry, and academia. So essentially, they presented to the Economic Council in 2011, and it was all agreed to basically commit 100 million from the government side. On the industry side, they say, and this was their promise, the industry said for every dollar spent by the government, they would basically see through that 7 times multiplier is created by that dollar.
And so that's an interesting thing, because now fast forward 8 years. Now you've basically have one of the key achievements which I was very impressed about is that 7 times has actually materialized to 11 times.
That's correct.
So that's quite an impressive number, because especially in Malaysia, one of the key challenges that we've had in the past is the fact that there was R&D, but there was no seed, there was no commercialization. So walk us through the last your 8-year journey as CEO of CREST.
Okay, so when we started in 2012, we started having a lot of conversations with. So we pride ourselves as being an industry-led organization. So we basically organize a lot of workshops and think tanks and so on. And this is where I'm impressed. From the very beginning, we had the most senior participation from the industry captains themselves.
So give us some names. Who are your members, for example?
Yeah, the normal the guys who started us were the likes of Intel, Motorola, AMD, Osram. Those were the big guys.
So they're obviously global names.
Global names.
How
yes.
about the collaboration partners on the academic side?
All the research universities are core members of CREST, so they're basically on board with us. But aside from that, we've got 24 universities as members of CREST, and that's just the members of CREST. We basically have just about collaborated with everybody. Some of them are not members yet, but we figure they'll come in as soon as they're ready.
Now, can you give us some key numbers, perhaps, of some of the key benefits that have been seen by the industry, by the ecosystem itself, as a result of CREST over the last 8 years?
Okay, so we basically started off our journey. I mean, the 3 activities of CREST is that we do collaborative R&D. And what that means is R&D is, usually people don't want to share their secrets and their knowledge. But here we are trying to encourage them to open up, to do research jointly with somebody else. And that's a little bit odd for some companies. But what we started in the first 2 years was to basically tell the community, the engineers and the researchers, that if you have ideas, we are willing to spend 50% and fund 50% of what's required for the R&D. And that worked really well. I mean, we didn't want to stand in the way of owning any IP, so they thought, hey, free money. Yeah. So they came in and they explored, and we started a momentum that kept going until 8 years. And
so this is a matching grant as such?
It is a matching grant. And if they have a good idea, they come in, they apply for twice a year. We would evaluate, ideas that are primarily engineering based and science and technology based. But the key point is this R&D needs to be not just good ideas, but they have a place in the market.
And that's where the link up with the commercial partners comes in, isn't it? Because Absolutely. They know what market is. So yes. Malaysia, we've always had this problem in the past. Lots of R&Ds, lots of patents filed, but they're all kept somewhere in storage.
It's nicely on somebody's shelf somewhere. Yeah. Exactly. So we don't want to spend money on IP if it is not going to generate any kind of revenue. And that's what we learn from the industry captains. So we're very focused in what we fund. And the ideas that they come in, they will be judged by their peers, right? So when they come in, we have an evaluation, we have a blind review of the projects, and if it's worthy, it shouldn't benefit just the companies alone, but also the community at large. So that's our criteria.
And this is what I would term then phase 1 CREST.
Yes.
First 3 years.
3 years.
How about the subsequent 5 years?
Okay, so phase 1, we basically wanted everybody to be excited about coming in with ideas, and we want to fund them. Phase 2, the next 3 years after the first 3 years, okay, what we did was we took a step back and we said, what were the ones that are important for the country? And we have a unique position such that we basically saw what companies want, what local companies can do, what academia can do, and match them together. So we played a huge role in matchmaking. Okay. So when people have ideas, we will try to match them with the subject matter expert, whether it's a researcher or a scientist in a company somewhere, to get the.
So did you then do in phase 2 an evolution of the building the ecosystem? So you had these large guys in the first phase.
Absolutely.
Then you had the academia. Now in second stage, you even had local companies come into the picture.
We opened up to the local companies from day one, but they were a little bit less engaged. Okay. In phase 2, definitely, yeah. We now started to say, where are the entrepreneurs? Where are the entrepreneurs and the innovators? And we took some of the momentum that we started in phase 1, and we basically tried to instigate actually locals to be part of that journey.
Could you share some success stories then during these periods of time?
Sure. One of the stories that we always talk about is this one where Motorola, they had a business problem in a way that they're actually a global supplier to two-way radios. And their customers are the largest customers around the world, and they're the market leader. But their problem is in an environment where there's high winds, the conversation gets very, very difficult. Okay. So the collaboration with the local university was the USM, University of Science Malaysia, where they basically work together to redesign the mouthpiece of a two-way radio such that it reduces the wind noise.
Okay,
and
interesting.
At the end of that project, Motorola adopted it, and it became part of the design of all their products going forward.
So in terms of patents and ownership, who ended up owning that patent?
That's a good one. Motorola owns the patents to that design because it's part of their product.
Right.
But guess what? The knowledge of building that design is retained by the University of Science Malaysia. So this is a beautiful story because when we started, the professor that we involved in this project was a pure academic, and he wasn't very sure about what commercialization was. But at the end of that project, he became addicted to, hey, I actually impacted a design that is sold globally, and now he started his own service that he's trying to do for the rest of the country out of Penang, where he redesigns machinery to reduce the noise.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting. I mean, the first thing that came to mind when you were explaining that was the fact that essentially that would involve noise cancellation technology.
Yes.
So there's a lot of applications elsewhere.
Yes. So now he's working with the likes of Dyson and others, Bosch and so on, to help redesign their equipment to reduce the noise. And and he's got his own business now.
So essentially, and I want to ask you the next question in terms of achievements of CREST. Talent development, therefore, has to be a big achievement. Can you share some numbers, perhaps?
Yeah, I feel talent development is if what we do is like a spinning top, and if 1/3 of that spinning top is R&D, talent development is the second 1/3, and the other 1/3 is commercialization. So if anyone fails, the top will go
spinning off, exactly.
Yeah? So talent development is absolutely key. And when we started, we basically, when we engage with the industry, what they say is that what our local universities weren't doing very well. I mean, they weren't doing enough. And essentially, there was a lot of work that needs to be done. When people leave the university, there's some upskilling that needs to be done. And it is such that the upskilling is extremely expensive if you have to do it for just a few people.
Correct.
Just a small bunch of people. So what we've been trying to do is to take the material that we've started with upskilling and trying to help bring it back into the last 2 years of the university.
Yeah, so in other words, the quality of the engineers produced at every level will increase dramatically, and they will be more market ready in terms of graduates, whether they are undergraduates, master's degree, postgraduates.
Right. And the other thing that we're trying to do is also now go backwards into the STEM side, to basically involve the industry, to bring them into the schools and try to get and inspire students to basically think about a science and engineering career.
Yeah, because that's a big problem for Malaysia right now, because on a global scale and the trends that we see, STEM education is actually becoming more and more important.
Absolutely.
China has been emphasizing this for the last 2 decades.
Right.
And essentially is reaping the rewards today.
Absolutely.
In Malaysia, however, we have a problem because kids are not going for STEM education, they're going for softer subjects like business.
Right. So what we do is we bring them by the busloads into into Penang, and to see what engineers do on a daily basis and so on.
And you also tell them that they have very well paying jobs in engineering.
Absolutely. So you see, so what we do is we're trying to start from high school. We're trying to impact the universities, but primarily the talent development that we've been working on is primarily post university. And we're trying to target for our particular community the masters and PhD students.
And what are you finding in terms of skill sets mismatch? Are there enough, or is there enough talent for all these large companies as well as these small companies coming up in the E&E business?
I mean, talent is the funny one, where if you ask about talent in just about any industry that we go to, everybody will say there's just not enough talent. And that's been not just in Malaysia, it's a problem that the world faces. How do we basically intervene to have just-in-time talent for the kind of skills required for the job? And that's something that I think we're having deep conversation with the industry, not just the ones here, but their counterparts in the States, for example, or in Japan and so on, to say what are some of their techniques to basically adopt so that we don't have to wait sometimes even 4 years before somebody is ready to be skilled for a job. How can we basically intervene just before, or even not even require someone to have a degree in some cases?
And this is an initiative that Google is doing right now.
Absolutely.
They've got an interesting thing in KL, which is started by a French billionaire, the 42 KL.
Yes, absolutely. I was about to say, yes, you're right.
Because essentially then, I think the industry is looking away from formalized degrees and having shorter courses, but then more market ready. So somebody could do a 6-month program with Google or like a 42 KL or whatever, and then this guy is ready to be employed.
Right. So the 4-year period before you get a degree could basically be a 10-year period, to which you basically prepare somebody for a particular job within a year, and then give them bite-sized skills as they go, and when they accumulate enough, they're ready for their degree, and it can take as long as they like.
That's right. So it goes back to so interestingly enough, we go back to the past, particularly in Europe, where kids took a lot of time to get their degrees, especially in Germany and all. They do an apprenticeship, and that's just like a 4-year apprenticeship, and that's a diploma, but that's not a degree. They go and work, and years later they go and do their PhD, their masters first, and then their PhD, because it's just part of learning, and they probably graduate at 30 years old.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, Jaffri, what have the challenges been in your 8-year journey?
Oh, okay. Where do I start? Okay, it's been really challenging in the sense that you have to appease to 3 different categories of stakeholders, and each one of those stakeholders want different things. For example, government, when they put money on you and you're responsible for the money on behalf of the rakyat, essentially they want to see how fast you can effectively do what you've been set up to do. So essentially, if they give you 100 million and 10 years, they want you to basically use that money to drive R&D and complete projects and commercialize them as soon as possible.
But and let me stop you there, because just some of the statistics that I researched about you. So 25% of your R&D projects were actually commercialized.
28% now.
28%. Okay, so that's the latest one. Okay, fantastic. Congratulations. That's quite a high number.
It is.
But from a government perspective, is that acceptable? Because from an industry perspective, if you look at it, you say, wow, that's a very good number.
It is. And it would be impressive. Why? Because if you look at other entities that do that, it's not been more than 11%, to be honest. So we're
which is more of a norm.
Beyond,
you're way beyond that. Exactly.
We're way beyond the norm.
And the second thing also, and speaking of government, you promised, and I read that you're going to get a 7 times return on your dollar spend.
Right.
You've ended up now having 11 times.
11 times. Yes.
So in that sense, you've appeased your government funders.
Yes, and those numbers are quite, to be very frank, they're very impressive to them, to the government, and we use that to basically say, we're doing something that's right, and if you think that's right, you can even replicate this model to other sectors as well.
Correct.
And that's something that we've been hearing a lot of from the likes of Mosti and
okay, and let's take up that. What are the key lessons then in terms of, so you've had a lot of challenges, and we're now still talking about government. What were the key lessons that could be replicated across?
Okay, for one, I think one of the key elements that creates our success is the participation from the industry, from the most senior levels.
And how did you get the buy-in?
Actually, I got the buy-in way before I came in. And I think that's
your personal relationships as well.
And I think it's something, people always ask me, is it something different about the water in Penang? where the leaders in Penang are a little bit different. And it comes from a 50 years of experience of building. And it's very much a Silicon Valley-like environment where they could compete with each other, but they could spend the rest, the evenings having drinks together.
Okay, so it's more collaborative.
And it's very collaborative, and they help each other, even though they compete, very well, but they also are friends among the industry leaders. So, which is something that I find very heartwarming for my 8 years in Penang. So one of the key parts about trying to replicate it is to have and to find industries that have that kind of maturity in the industry. And it won't work so well in an industry where you have a monopoly, like a financial sector would probably have the likes of Bank Negara, for example, telling you what to do.
Yeah, because it's a heavily regulated industry.
Industry. So those were some of the things that we learned over the 8 years. High participation from the industry. As a matter of fact, we always say, we'll facilitate many things, but if you don't stand up and help us lead any of the things that we do, we're going to shut it down. And thankfully that's been working. I mean, they've basically been working hand in hand with us, in some of the projects that we do, but in the ones that we don't, and in the ones that kind of doesn't work so well, we learn from it and we move on.
Okay, so we talked about government. How about the other two stakeholders?
Okay. the other two stakeholders. Yeah. Academia is essentially, very. It's a different world altogether compared to for government, in a sense that their drivers would be to secure funding from government and to drive their activities from what they've always known for the last tens of years. So for us, when we started, it's been challenging. I think they always I always get the feeling that they will not participate until they see where they can gain from it, and if I bring money to the table, it will be much better.
That's always like anything. It greases the palms,
yes.
The oils grease to.
Unfortunately, yes. But that was the beginning. I think over the years we've warmed up, and basically everybody now knows that we don't have any kind of agenda apart from driving the economic activities, through creation of new IP and talent. So in that, I think we've now gotten a lot of support from academia.
Sorry, Jaffri, I got to interrupt you, because one of the challenges with academia is this, and particularly Malaysian academia, they have KPIs which are driven by publishing.
Absolutely.
And their KPIs driven by numbers. So it's quality, not quality, but quantity.
Quantity.
How have you been able to in fact shift that mindset to more of a quality-driven agenda?
Well, it's been challenging, to be very honest, and it's still a bit of a struggle, and you do find universities, academia that basically think differently. And to be very honest, the private ones seem to be a little bit hungrier than the public ones, in a sense that if you basically have new areas to drive, you will see the private universities turning around and playing ball much faster than the public ones. But we do have pleasantly been surprised by quite a number of public universities, one of which is UITM, for example. When we started, we did a survey and we said, these are where all the students are coming from that's being hired by the industry. And UITM was by far not the top university. The leadership at UITM, for example, turned around and said, how can I change that?
And it's good that they actually acknowledge that. They took it positively.
That and how can I change that? How can I work with you to basically bring my numbers so that the companies hire from me? And today I don't have the numbers. Unfortunately, we haven't done the same survey, but we can safely say that it has increased from the days that we started working from that.
And your third stakeholder challenges?
I'm sorry, the third one.
Yeah.
Okay, the third one is industry. Well, industry has been the most easiest, to be honest, for me, in the sense that essentially, the business of the day is when you put money down, you want to get money back, and so if you respect that, then what motivates and what drives. There will be companies that have a very Malaysian teams in their senior management who basically do a lot more than business, for example, and that's where I think we've benefited in the sense that they basically know that how CREST can help is to basically strengthen the ecosystem, and that's where companies tend to gain, because then they have more collaborators that they can work with, that they can bring up to the HQ and say, we can do a 5G project because that university has that kind of capability. So this is where we work with the companies very closely. Yeah.
So Jaffri, now that was in the past. Today you have 6 technology clusters and 3 cluster developments. What are moving forward? What are you, and that's a lot of things. It's everything from IoT to Industry 4.0, all the buzzwords.
Yes.
Materials, it's LEDs, drones. But where are the 3 focus areas moving forward?
Okay, so essentially we are getting towards the end of the first part of the CREST journey, which is the 10-year funding, and we are now asked to say, what's next? So what's your next 5 years? So we developed a blueprint for CREST for the next 5 years. We call CREST 2.0, to which while we want to go and drive what we've started driving, as you say, the 6 clusters and the 3 different areas that we're working on, we basically want to go harness deeper into each one of those. So for R&D, we want to go deeper. If we've basically done what we've done, we want to go and harness more talent as well. So we want to do more with that. But at the same time, one of the things that we want to drive, that's going to be a huge focus area for us, is that we're going to basically try and prepare to go bring what we've to do it towards the end of our projects, to go much closer into the commercialization space. This is what we call the new product introduction, and this is how we basically find candidates that basically are more entrepreneurial and take on some of the technologies and bring them closer to the marketplace. That's one. We basically have a huge program called the gallium nitride research program. A project that we are collaborating with a Nobel Prize winner, Professor Suji Nakamura. So we've gone and developed a lab that's equivalent to his lab in Santa Barbara, in University Malaya and University Science Malaysia. And we've got collaborating universities out of Monash University in Malaysia, as well as UNIMAP. So that's a big area for us where we want to drive gallium nitride research into new fields. Well, the first 5 years we looked into developing next generation LED solutions. We now want to drive the gallium nitride into things like communications, things like UV, and that is something that's important today, because UV light essentially helps eliminate virus and
That's right.
and bacteria. So this is something that the world is focusing on, and we've got a good start from the first 5 years. Now we can do more of it with that. Some other areas is we've started on the smart city and digital healthcare. We want to drive that even further with the next 5 years. And also we've been challenged by the stakeholders to say, what can you do with precision agriculture? So those are the couple of things that we're going to be focusing on for the next 5 years.
And this is a macro question, and we'll end with this.
Okay. Sure.
As a country, we are caught in the middle income trap right now. And CREST, being in the E&E space, you're literally in the forefront of trying to help us transition to a high-tech nation.
Yes.
What do you think we need to do to beat the likes of our neighbors?
Okay.
So on one hand, we have probably someone much higher up in the value chain, Singapore, and then we have Vietnam, which has come from behind, and in some areas it's already surpassed us.
Right. So I think for us, we've got to be able to take risks. I think that's the one thing that I think Malaysia is not doing well enough, and I think we've been bitten on a couple of occasions where we seem to do high-tech projects, but they seem to sort of not achieve its objectives. So if you can put a good team together, you've got to trust the technology community to be able to bring it all the way. And the other thing that I think is necessary for any country to succeed is to be able to keep focus and to drive it all the way to the very end. I mean,
and that also means, Jaffri, then probably making not too many bets, but a few key bets.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely, yes. And I would basically urge our stakeholders to leverage our strengths that's been there for the last 50 years up in the technology community that we've built, and it's a nice ecosystem. It's ready to take new directions. We need to focus, and we need to ensure that the money that we spend is good, but we do need to learn how to stick our necks out and take chances and drive it all the way through.
Jaffri, thank you very much. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Jaffri Ibrahim, CEO of CREST. Check us out on www.biztech.asia for more technology and business conversations.